Thank you for joining us tonight. You are seeing a presentation, Redistricting in Florida, being hosted by All on the Line, League of Women Voters, and the Indivisible Florida Network. If you can do us a favor, go ahead and put in the chat where you're joining us from tonight. That would be awesome. Just a friendly reminder, I'm sure at this point, many of us already know everything about Zoom. But you are on mute for the most part. If you have any questions, please flag question and put that in the chat, and we'll make sure that we make time for the questions. Once again, going to say it one more time. This is off the record and closed to the press, and it is being recorded. All righty. So my name is Lori Woodward Garcia. I'm pleased to welcome you tonight. I'd like to introduce our speakers tonight and the leaders of the organizations that are presenting. We have Ebony Davis with All on the Line Florida. Ebony, could you kindly introduce yourself and your group to folks?
Yes, hello. Like you said, my name is Ebony Davies, and I'm the Florida digital organizer for On the Line. I'm so excited to be here with y'all tonight, and thank you for taking the time to join us in this very timely discussion. I'll go ahead in my presentation and detail provide more context about who we are and what On the Line aims to do. But about me, I'm currently located in Tampa, Florida. I'm super excited to be involved in this fight because I understand that gerrymandering is the barrier that prevents structural change. Any change that we want to see, regardless of the issue, gerrymandering is the structural barrier. So thank you so much for taking time and hopefully joining us in this fight.
Awesome, thank you so much. I'm also very happy to introduce, we have Patricia Brigham with the League of Women Voters, Florida. Patty, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself and your organization?
Sure, well, I'm Patty Brigham and I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Florida. And I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for this invitation to speak about such an important issue, redistricting. As many of you know, there was quite a fight for fair districts 10 or so years ago, which we won, along with Common Cause and a great legal team. And here we are going back into redistricting again. So it's going to be another exciting journey, I'm sure, and we hope it's going to be a fair and transparent one. But I'm delighted to be here. And by the way, I'm in Orlando, and that's where our headquarters is located as well. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. I think we have a couple of our leaders on. I know Nancy and David and a few others. If I didn't unmute the others, I apologize. But if you want to take a moment and just let us know where you're joining us from and which group you're representing, please.
Hi, I'm Nancy Terreri with LEOFA Indivisible here in Fort Myers, Florida.
And Ronald Matzner from Palm Beach Indivisibles.
I'm Anna Anselmo with Broward for Progress.
Cynthia Lippert, Indivisible Florida 13, Pinellas County.
I'm Barbara Byram. I'm with Citizens for an Engaged Electorate. We are an Indivisible Florida Network group in Levy County, Florida.
David, would you like to introduce your group?
David Johnson, Indivisible Clay in Clay County.
Thank you so much. All righty. I hope I didn't miss anybody. And as I said, I'm sorry?
I think Mike might be on.
Oh, is he? Mike Thomas? I did not. Is he able to unmute? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to unmute you earlier, Mike. You have Mike also with Indivisible 13?
Mike Thomas, Indivisible Florida 13 in St.
Oh, okay, you got it. Thank you. All right, well, thank you so much to our group leaders, to All in Line Florida and League of Women Voters, so much for coming out. My name, as I said, is Lori Woodward Garcia. I'm with Broward for Progress, and we are part of the Indivisible Florida Network. You're going to hear about these three organizations. Our group is a grassroots group, and the others, you'll hear about are doing great work around the state, and we're here to support the work they're doing and get out the important information about redistricting in Florida. As you are going to hear, this is important to our state, and it's really critical that we really take on outreach in the state, getting as many folks that we know, our neighbors, friends, to understand this issue and why it's important, particularly in the state of Florida. So without further ado, I'm happy to pass it off to Abini. She's going to go ahead and take it from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so bear with me for one moment while I get my screen shared. Okay. Okay, great. Can everyone see this okay? It should say redistricting you, big purple screen.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Awesome. All right, let's dive in. So hello, everyone. Like I mentioned before, my name is Abini, and I am the Florida Digital Organizer with On the Line. Again, thank you so much for having me here tonight to talk about the redistricting process and how you can get involved with us. So first, I want to take a moment, like I promised, to tell you more about On the Line. We are a 501c4 campaign to bring citizens across every issue together to win on redistricting in 2021. So our mission is to raise awareness about the harmful impact gerrymandering has on federal and state policymaking. We want to create and encourage participation in activities that defend democratic ideals. And we really want to increase grassroots engagement in every step of the redistricting process. So just to dive a little deeper, we are a campaign under the National Redistricting Action Fund, which is part of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, or otherwise known as NDRC. So former Attorney General Eric Holder serves as our chair. And I'm curious, go ahead and drop a 1 in the chat if you actually heard of us before. I see the chat just going crazy, so that's awesome. I love to see it. Great, so pushing us forward, All on the Line, we are a campaign that's that falls under the National Redistricting Action Fund. So we have multiple buckets of our organization, and I just want to take the time to go through them just to show you that we are a comprehensive organization. So we have, as you see on the screen here, 4 main parts to our organization. The first is litigation. So this is run out of our 501c3, the National Redistricting Foundation. And this team is who helps ensure we have fair maps through the courts. You actually may have heard about some of our recent litigation efforts in states like North Carolina. We also have a reform component, and so we believe that drawing maps should be out of the hands of politicians, and our gold standard is establishing independent commissions or commissions that do not involve elected officials drawing the boundaries or redistricting. And we will advocate for that and support states that are trying to establish those commissions. Unfortunately, here in the state of Florida, we do not have an independent commission. And I'll talk about later on in our presentation what the redistricting process looks like in our state. Next, we have infrastructure. So we are trying to build grassroots power now before the redistricting process begins here in 2021. So this is where On the Line comes in. We live under this infrastructure kind of like umbrella. We also have mapping analysts who will be able to assess maps that are being proposed and passed to ensure that these maps are fair. And finally, we have an electoral side. So the All on the Line campaign doesn't spend much of our time here, but say as elections get closer in Florida, what we might see are NDRC endorsed candidates that have pledged to fight for fair maps that we will ask our volunteers to support. So if we have any of those candidates, we will take our grassroots power and advocate and fight for those candidates. So let's see, go back to, okay. So now let's talk a little bit about the big picture and what brings me here to talk to y'all tonight. And so I want to start by showing you a 4-minute video that just talks a little bit more about our campaign, and you might see some familiar faces. So.
People ask me all the time, what is gerrymandering? And I start with kind of a basic premise. Gerrymandering is cheating.
Gerrymandering is a sneaky way for politicians to consolidate as much power as they can.
Gerrymandering is when politicians manipulate the maps in order to predetermine the outcome so that it benefits one side over the other.
Politicians gerrymander by manipulating district lines in ways that either crack or pack communities. So cracking is when you take a community and you split it. And so the ability to influence the outcome of an election is diminished when that community is torn apart. Packing takes a broader community and pulls them all into one district so that that community, even though it's a little bit bigger, is limited in its ability to influence the electoral outcomes and policy preferences of that state.
You have this dynamic that skews to the right and the left and polarizes our politics. And the result of that is that it's very difficult to solve the problems that affect people's lives.
All political issues are affected by gerrymandering. How we deal with tax reform, how we deal with climate change, how we deal with gun safety.
It's not a coincidence that you see the greatest amount of voter suppression where you see the greatest amount of gerrymandering.
When people know that their vote doesn't count, they're less inclined to be involved, or they're less inclined to think that their government speaks for them.
In the end, gerrymandering means citizens' voices are being diminished.
A lot of people will say, oh, politicians on both sides do it. Oh, everybody's been doing this since the dawn of America. And that doesn't make it okay. And it doesn't mean we don't need to address it.
Gerrymandering has been something that has been in the DNA of this nation for some time. But what happened in 2011, where the Republicans drew the lines for the next 10 years, was really the worst example of gerrymandering for some time. All on the Line is a grassroots advocacy effort to mobilize people, to get people involved in the redistricting process.
We are meeting with elected officials. We are training volunteers. We are sharing information about gerrymandering and redistricting. We are getting ready for the redistricting process, and we need people to get involved.
Teachers, doctors, volunteers of every kind, even a former president, who are joining together to end gerrymandering and ensure that our democracy is living up to its founding promise.
So the vision of All on the Line is to have a redistricting process in 2021 that results in maps that are responsive to and reflective of the will of the voter.
Redistricting is going to happen in 2021. All of our congressional maps and state legislative maps are going to be redrawn. But guess what? We don't have to gerrymander.
And we're counting on you to help ensure a reasonable, transparent redistricting process that honors our ideal of equal representation.
People should join All on the Line because the next decade and probably more depends on it.
All of us have a unique capacity, and I would say a specific responsibility to be engaged in the civic life of this country.
Gerrymandering leads us to a broken democracy.
But hope is not lost.
It's all on us.
It's all on the line.
Awesome. You know, the video does its job when it gives you goosebumps, and that's what I get every time I see that. Okay, so let's kind of unpack that, because there was a lot of great things that was discussed in that video. So the problem, right? We wouldn't all be here today if there wasn't a problem that's facing us. And what that problem is that our elected officials aren't accountable to the public because they have co-opted the redistricting process to gerrymander or to pick their voters. And if you've heard of the term vote them out, go ahead and put a 2 in the chat, because I want to see something here. I hope I'm not the only person who uses this. Okay, good. You're making me feel really good. So I use this term all the time, vote them out. I actually just tweeted something a couple of weeks ago to some of my Texas friends, is telling them to vote them out. And I realized through this work that while that's a very catchy and motivating saying, right? Like that actually got me like 79 likes on Twitter, which was really cool. It doesn't always work when the system is broken. So let's talk about what's happening here. And I think it's important before we have this discussion is to focus on the terms redistricting and gerrymandering and really get a clear understanding of what both of these terms mean. So redistricting is not the same as gerrymandering. What gerrymandering is it's a form of cheating so that a political party or other group can gain power without actually winning a majority of the vote in their state. So politicians gerrymander during the redistricting process to establish a political advantage by manipulating electoral district boundaries. So gerrymandering is a form of cheating, and it's a tactic, but states have to redistrict every 10 years. It's a part of the process, but no one should ever have to gerrymander. So thinking of it another way, redistricting allows voters to choose who their representatives will be, while gerrymandering allows representatives to choose who their voters will be. And for my visual learners out there, this really paints a picture. So let's break what's happening down in this image. So let's say that the red squares are Republican voters and the blue are Democrats. And let's think about each column as like a state. So if we look at the first image, what we see is that we see a specific number of red Republican squares and blue Democrat squares. It looks like Democrats are in the majority in this state. Now, if we look at column 2, there are 5, let's say, districts. So I see 5 lines there, and it looks like someone maybe is trying to redistrict here. So there are 5 districts, and we can say that there are 5 Democratic districts because the blue is in the majority here in this middle image. Now, let's take a look at column 3 because it's spicy, and there's some things that are happening in here that aren't okay, that it's not okay. So we see that there's the same number of squares and districts in column 3 as in column 1. But now there are more Republican districts than Democrat districts simply because of the way that the boundaries were drawn. And this shows that real maps can be manipulated just like this as well. And it goes to show that if elected officials can pick their voters, then why would they feel like they need to listen to us? And if we kind of just dive a little deeper and apply gerrymandering to us here in Florida, some people think you can always see gerrymandering, and sometimes this is true. So let's look at the former and current Congressional District 5 as an example. So if you look at the image on the left, what you'll see is the 2012 congressional map. So it splits counties and communities. So this district stretches all the way from Jacksonville to Orlando, and it splits 8 counties between the cities. So a fun fact actually is that in some areas, the district is literally the width of a highway. So that's wild. Now, if you look at the enacted District 5, so the image on the right, while it does stretch a similar length, it grabs entire counties on its way, and it only splits counties of Leon and Duval where like necessary. So the district is drawn this way to unite the Black voting populations from Jacksonville and Tallahassee to create what's called a minority opportunity district. And this is a legally permissible district where members of a certain minority group make up the majority of the voters. And so minority opportunity districts allow for racial and language minorities to elect a representative of their choice. So in this case of Congressional District 5, the district has what's called a Black voting age population, or abbreviated as BVAP, of just over 45%. And so that creates a minority opportunity district in this North Florida area without overpacking voters. So if we want to talk more about how we're affected by gerrymandering here in the state of Florida, here are some real life examples. These are examples of where elected officials haven't been listening really to the will of the people. And when you look at these examples, you might think that these are issues that only one side cares about, but that's actually not true. These are issues that Floridians across all party lines have agreed on. So the first one is if we talk about Amendment 4. What happened here was elected officials voted across party lines to increase barriers on the implementation of Amendment 4. And Amendment 4 is the amendment that a majority of Floridians voted for in 2018 that gave those with felonies who served their sentence the right to vote back. So this new legislation now requires ex-felons to pay all of their fines, fees, and restitutions associated with their sentences before they can have the right to vote back. And essentially, if we're going to call it what it is, this is a modern day poll tax. And this is not the amendment that Floridians voted overwhelmingly for, and it will greatly reduce the number of people who will be enfranchised. So this is a really big example of how we have elected representatives who are not actually reflecting our values, but they're getting away with it because their district is so gerrymandered that it's not competitive, and they know that the other party is not going to be able to win there. And if you see, the second example is in a recent session, the legislature voted to arm teachers in schools. And this is something that polling showed that Floridians did not want. And in fact, they wanted to see tighter gun laws. And this comes on top of the Guardian program, which was essentially like placing armed guardians onto school campuses. This was something that Rick Scott signed into law after the school shooting in Parkland. And it exempted teachers from being able to carry guns on school property, which polls actually showed that most voters also disapproved of. So thankfully, each school district can choose to implement these programs, and not many districts have actually elected to. But this is another example that shows how our elected officials here who are supposed to be representing us are not actually listening to what we want. And then lastly, the last point is that most Floridians across all demographic levels are deeply concerned about climate change. And that was actually a term that was once banned at the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. I'm just like dropping all the fun facts on you guys tonight, but it's very interesting to know. And thankfully, we have some movement on climate change here in Florida, as the current governor has acknowledged the term climate change, yay. However, going from banning the term to some of our elected officials just now starting to acknowledge it, that's not going to solve our climate problem in Florida when more aggressive policy making is necessary. And so this is another example of an issue across party lines and across demographics that Floridians believe is a problem that we do want to do something about. So pushing us forward with a problem, there's always a solution. And so let's talk about what we think the solution here is. We absolutely need to increase public engagement around the redistricting process to advocate for fair and transparent map creation policies. But we know that we can't do that until we know a little bit more about the process here specifically in Florida. So let's go ahead and dive into that. So let's talk about redistricting and what it looks like in Florida, because every state is different. So I'm very curious, does anyone know when redistricting happened last in Florida? And go ahead and just drop your answers in the chat. Okay, okay. Well, this is fun. Ooh. Ooh, okay, yes. Awesome, okay, I see answers rolling in. Let me get rid of the chat. Oh, where is it? Okay, I love it, I love it. Okay, so drum roll, the answer is 2012. So 2012 was the last time that redistricting happened. It happens the year after the census. And so the census is in every year that ends in a 0. And then here in Florida, maps can't be drawn until 2 years after that. And so 2012 was the last time that redistricting happened. And what is most important to note here is that redistricting, like I said, only happens every 10 years after the census count. And so we have to get it right. And that time literally is now. So we have to be prepared for the remainder of 2021 and the beginning of 2022 when the maps are going to be drawn. So who draws the maps here in Florida? Well, maps are drafted in redistricting committees in both the House, the Florida House, and the Florida Senate before being voted on by the entire legislature. So the Senate committee draws the Senate map, and the House committee draws the House maps. And then they usually have a joint committee that will draw the congressional maps. So congressional districts in Florida are drawn by the Florida Legislature. The process starts in the redistricting committees in the House and Senate. And then what happens is they pass as a piece of legislation that the governor can veto. So state legislative districts in Florida, so our state House and state Senate seats, are also drawn by the Florida Legislature, and they're passed as a joint resolution. However, the governor cannot veto these plans. What happens is the Supreme Court of Florida will review the maps, and they can decide to strike them down or approve them. If they want to strike them down, then the legislator has to hold a special session to redraw the maps. And so in a circumstance where they can't agree, what happens is the Supreme Court can actually draw the maps or take input to create a new map. So that leads us to our fair districts. Florida is really special, and we're special here for many other reasons, but we're very special because we have strict constitutional standards around redistricting. So what happened was in 2010, voters overwhelmingly approved our fair districts amendments 5 and 6. And Amendment 5 is for state legislative districts, and Amendment 6 is for congressional districts. So both amendments literally aim to do the same thing, and they have the same language. They both prohibit line drawing that intentionally favors or disfavors a political party or an incumbent, and they protect racial and language minorities. So this is wonderful. We have some protection here, but what happened actually, it gets spicy, is that in 2010, the Florida legislature, and I smile when I say this, and I don't mean to smile because it's not a good thing, it's just so baffling. But in 2012, the Florida state legislature passed a gerrymandered congressional map, and they completely ignored the fair districts constitutional amendments that were passed by voters in 2010. And this was signed into law by then Governor Rick Scott. So not to get into a ton of weeds here, but there was litigation brought against the new district lines that occurred between 2012 and 2015, where eventually the Florida Supreme Court, they struck down the 2012 congressional map and they adopted a new map in 2015. So then in 2016, the Second Circuit Court in Leon County adopted a new plan for state Senate districts. So we got new congressional and state Senate maps. And these maps were shaped by community groups who helped lead this litigation, like the League of Women Voters, who we have on here today, and Common Cause, who presented suggested fair maps to the court that the court actually accepted. So while the redistricting process last started in 2011 in Florida, it really honestly didn't end until 2015. So public engagement, this slide is really important because it's important to know or to talk about the sham public input process that was 2011. So there are no statutes that require public hearings specifically for redistricting, but the state's legislature has traditionally held hearings at the state capitol or like other Florida cities. So the litigation that was discussed in the previous slide, what we found through that was that while many of these public hearings were occurring, there were political partisan operatives who were secretly drawing map boundaries while submitting them under names of contacts that they had attend the hearings. And I say that and I share that because I don't want any of us to be fooled by the fact that there was a public engagement process last time. We have to make sure it is not just public engagement, but that it is really transparent. We want map drawing to be in the public and in front of citizens, or we would like citizens to have access to it. And for citizens to be able to comment on draft maps, which didn't happen last time, before they are passed. So that brings us to where are we right now in this process? I'm sure a lot of us are fired up and ready to go. And it's most important to note that there has been a delay in the census data, which has led to a delay in committees being appointed. And it may possibly impact like public input. So that's where we are right now. However, a few weeks back, we did get information in terms of districts here in Florida, and the state of Florida is going to get one additional congressional district, which is good news. So every time there is a well, it was news that was released, I should say. Every time there is information that comes out, we will always update anyone who's involved and keep you updated in the process. And this is the timeline of where we fall right now and what we're expecting to happen, even though things could change. So for the fall of 2021, we expect redistricting committee members to be accepted, be selected. In the summer to the fall of 2021, that's where we expect public hearings to happen. And if there aren't any public hearings that are announced, we will try to make sure that we have some form of public input process. From August to December 2021, that's where these like reapportionment, redistricting committee meetings, and even possible map drawing could take place. And then from January to March 22 is where maps will be passed in the 2022 legislative session. And then after that happens, there could be like possible special sessions or redraws if maps are not like valid. And then that brings us to our first state filing deadlines, which will happen in April of 22 for federal offices, and then in June of 22 for statewide races. So the moment everybody's been waiting for, how can we take action? What can we do? So as of now, there's not an official process that has begun due to the census delay. But advocating for a transparent map drawing process and participating in the public input process will be so important. And in fact, what we hope to do is to come back to teach you all how to engage in that process once we have more information. But in the meantime, we can certainly put pressure on elected officials to begin this process transparently now, and engage and educate our communities now as well. So you can learn more about how to do that by going to our Mobilize page, On the Line Florida's Mobilize page, and we'll drop that in the chat. And this is where all of our volunteer opportunities live. So you can go here to get looped in the work, to take action now, or to see what's going to come. And we're constantly updating this. And so it's a great way for you to take action with us now. We have multiple opportunities to get involved, such as presenting like I'm doing now to other groups, or being an online ambassador and posting to your networks about fair districts and gerrymandering, and even writing a letter to your editor asking them to promote this cause and encourage legislators to sign our Fair Districts Pledge. So there's multiple ways you can get involved. Please feel free to go to that link. And with that, I'll stop sharing and pass it back to you, Lori.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was really informative. And I had some flashbacks of 10 years ago going to those hearings. So, and also I'm actually in one of the districts that the courts flipped. I went from being a member of 25 to 20 because of that lawsuit. So I'm profoundly grateful to the folks that led the litigation to make the representation a little more fair. I want to pass it off before we get to questions. I want to pass it off to Patricia Brigham with the League of Women Voters. They also have some information for us on the work that they were doing, and I want to make sure that we give time to them to let us know what they're going to be working on. Patricia?
Well, thank you. And I thought that was a great presentation. We're thrilled to be partnering with All on the Line and the coalition that you have created, along with superstar attorney extraordinaire, Fair Districts Queen Ellen Frieden. And so we're delighted to be working with her again. And, you know, across the nation, the League of Women Voters is the only national organization with active representation doing work on redistricting in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia. So we have more than 700 communities around the country that the League is in every congressional district in those counties. So we've been very involved in this process for a long time, and are going to continue to be involved in this process once again. What we're doing right now is we're working on an education campaign to show to all of our members around the state. We have 29 local leagues from Pensacola to the Keys. And for those of you who are not in the league, I know some of you on this call are, I know some of you are not, we are a nonpartisan organization. We do not advocate for candidates or party, but we do strongly advocate after study and consensus policy. And we believe fair districts is good policy. And we believe gerrymandering is a very bad thing. And we're going to be fighting that if that should occur. And we know the landscape in Florida. I don't have to tell all of you that. So we are in the process of creating a presentation that all of our local leagues will roll out in their communities to show to the public, because one of the things that we really have to do is raise awareness about the importance of redistricting, just like we had to raise awareness about the importance of the census, because the census and redistricting are connected. And unfortunately, the census data was slowed down from arriving, but we're looking forward to seeing more of it in the fall, I believe September, to learn more about the results. But we are in the process of creating this educational program, which will be a PowerPoint, and I hope it's as good as the one that we just saw. But we want to show this presentation to as many community groups who will have us. Raising public awareness about the importance of redistricting is critical. It's important for the average citizen to know that it should not be the legislators determining who, you know, are going to vote for them. It's the voters, right? There should be a fair mapping process. So we're going to make sure we're going to have our eyes peeled because we are a watchdog organization, as well as protectors of democracy and voting rights. But we can encourage you all, and I will encourage you all right now, those of you who are not members of the League, and I know a number of you are from around the state. I've been looking in the chat box. There are local leagues nearby to a lot of you on this call. It's a minimal fee to join the league. You can get involved as much as you want or as little, and then, you know, we have a number of issues we work on. But redistricting is going to be so important, and your help in getting the word out on redistricting, why it's important. If you're a good speaker, joining a local league speakers bureau and presenting the presentation we're going to make available, it's important. So we need you. We definitely need you to join the League of Women Voters in your local community. I know I see Idalia Phillips on here. She's the immediate past president, or soon to be, of the Hillsborough County League. Hi, Idalia. Please do join the League, because the League has been active, as I said, in the redistricting process for many, many years now. And we're delighted to work with All on the Line, and we're going to be rolling out more types of actions you can take. We just had a week of action, a day of action. We're going to be having much more online awareness about this. But the single most important thing that we can do right now is to promote public awareness, educate the public about redistricting and how redistricting is different. Excellent point, from gerrymandering. Two different things. So with that, if you want to join the League, go to our website, lwvfl.org. I believe that it's in the chat. And you can look up to see if there is a local league in your area. And if not, you can certainly become a member at large and become a part of our organization that way. You'll get all of our newsletters, updates on redistricting, the whole bit. But we would love to have you. We welcome you. Like I said, we're not a partisan organization. We are strictly nonpartisan. We want fair districts. We want a fair democratic system that is open to all. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for sharing that. And I'm really looking forward to your organization and All on the Line Florida leading on this effort. We have just a couple of questions. Most of them seem to be pretty similar. So I do want to just take a couple of minutes and then we'll wrap up. The first question, and this is open to either of you, is how are you doing this outreach or raising awareness? So you mentioned the educational sessions. Is there any other efforts that you're doing to outreach in Florida?
Well, I can take that. I mean, we will, once we have our presentation ready, we will be educating throughout the state, from the Panhandle all through Central Florida, down through South Florida into the Keys, to as many organizations and community groups where we're invited. So we'll be giving hundreds and hundreds of these presentations to educate the public about redistricting. Yes.
Awesome. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ebony.
Yeah, no, just want to piggyback off of that. We're doing the same thing with All on the Line. We have a presenter program And what's really special about that is volunteers can participate in that. And so if anybody wants to present to their own groups or clubs or communities and give a similar presentation, we'll give them all the tools that they need to do so. And then they can go ahead and talk to their groups and get them involved in the fight. And so that's a wonderful volunteer opportunity that we have.
I love that, empowering groups that are doing the work in their community. One of the questions is asked, are you going to be working with groups specifically that are non-bipartisan?
I'm not sure what you mean non-bipartisan.
So the question is, your outreach to specifically, are you working with groups that are just nonpartisan, or are you also doing education? I think this is directed to All on the Line Florida. Are you doing outreach as well to non-bipartisan organizations?
Yes. So we will literally talk to anybody who wants a presentation, who wants to learn about redistricting and gerrymandering. Yeah, we're not specific on that. And so, yeah, we're not partisan in that. And so anyone, I recently talked to a sorority about the redistricting here in Florida and things like that. So yep, anyone who's interested, I can't stress that enough, please feel free to contact me. I can get you trained on how to give a presentation. And yeah, you can.
Awesome.
And I'd also like to add, the league, we're nonpartisan, but we will speak to any group who wants us to talk to them. I mean, we, if we're invited, we will speak.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then the last question, I think, and I think that pretty much well covers is I support, the statement was made, I support elected officials not being in control of this process. But let's be realistic, everyone has some sort of self-interest and is registered to vote under a certain party, usually. How will it be determined which demographics are represented and what qualifications should those people be sitting on? Let's say if there was a board, and I probably, Ebony, you could speak to this because there are states that it's not, these maps are not crafted by the state house like they are here in Florida, but how are they crafted to ensure fairness? So how do we take out the partisanship of that?
Okay, just to clarify, do you mean like state specific? So how can we do that here in Florida?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, beautiful. So we believe that if we follow our fair district amendments that we had, that were voted for in 2010, then that can produce a fair map. So what we want to aim to do is to have the legislator follow those fair district amendments, because we do believe that those are a standard that will get us that as close as we can to a fair district. So definitely following those fair district amendments. And then I know other states have those independent commissions and things like that. But because that's something that we don't have here in Florida, I can't really speak too much of what that looks like in terms of fairness and whatnot, but we are special because we have those fair district amendments. And so we would love for those to be followed.
Wow.
Well, I'm sorry. Do you mind if I say something? At our lobby day several weeks ago, we had our press conference on redistricting, and of course, Ellen Frieden was one of our speakers, and we introduced a pledge. Katie, with All on the Line, introduced a pledge that we are asking legislators sign that they will follow the fair districts amendments. They will keep this process transparent and open and honest. And we had a Senator Annette Taddeo was the first legislator to sign that pledge. She was at our press conference. So we've had a few more legislators sign since then. We're going to be following up with those legislators, make sure that they sign. We feel it's just an important symbolic message to get the legislators to put in writing that they will follow a transparent process in redistricting. So we are working to get them to sign the pledge.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And I know I can probably say on behalf of my organization and probably my brothers and sisters of indivisibles around the state, let us know if there's any that are naughty and not willing to sign that. We'll certainly have our members contacting them. I'm going to take one last question and then I close this out. There was a question in here. Let's see, what was it? This is a great question. Do the fair district amendments or mapping, does this apply to local districting such as county commission districts, or are we just talking about the state level?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the fair districts 5 and 6, fair district amendment 5 is for state, and then amendment 6 is for congressional. So they are, there's 2 separate ones, but they are literally asking to do the same thing. They have the same language, and they aim to do the same exact thing for those 2 separate.
All righty.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. You're going to receive a follow-up email tomorrow morning with our contact information, the information that we've discussed here. I also want to let you know, as you heard, and if we learn of any of the trainings or the additional information now that you're on this list, we will certainly make sure that you have information on that to sign up for trainings, or if there is going to be a tour around Florida, to make sure that you have that information. Want to let you know of 2 events that the Indivisible Florida Network is going to be hosting. We have coming up Florida Disinformation and Extremist Activity. That's with the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I will drop that in the chat in a minute. That's coming up. And then we also have another event which is presented by a League of Women Voter presenter, Pam Edwards-Royne, who's also with the Floridians for National Popular Vote, and she'll be speaking about Florida advocacy around the national popular vote. And I will drop links in for both of those. And you'll, as I said, please stay tuned. The reality is we've got to do a lot of outreach, talk to our neighbors, our community members, make sure they understand this issue. And then we need to grab more bodies to help with volunteering when the time comes. Because in every county, there is definitely going to be a need for good people that are looking for fair districting, fair map process. We need to be a part of this process so we don't have to be in the news under court cases and things like that. So please stay tuned. And lastly, I just want to thank with deep gratitude the League of Women Voters Florida and All on the Line Florida for stepping up and sponsoring this with us tonight to get information out. Really grateful for your leadership on this issue and many of the other things that you do around the state. I know that at times Florida can seem like, oh, Florida, but I'm an optimist, and I see the amazing work that organizations like these 2 are doing around the state, and it gives me great hope. I thank all of you for taking time tonight, and we're pretty much at 8 o'clock. So I think unless I see one hand raised here. Hang on, let me just take that because I don't want to be disrespectful. Let's see, where'd it go? Oh, I think I lost it there. All right, I think that is it. We'll close it out.
Marsha, who has her hands raised.
Oh, could you I don't see it. I saw it for a minute.
She is on video, but I don't see her audio on.
Okay, if you want to put in the chat, you had a question. Oh, the pledge. Patricia, will you do us a favor? If you can send me an email with the pledge, I'll make sure that we also send that out to our list. That's a great suggestion, Ron, from the Indivisible Palm Beach, that we'll be able to share that out as well.
Oh, and real quick, also, you can, on our Mobilize page, we also have the link for that pledge too.
Okay.
So if you want to access it that way as well, if that's helpful.
Okay.
I believe it's on our website as well, if you want to lwvfl.org.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it, guys. And thank you so much. Really appreciate everybody hopping on this, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much.
All right. Night, everybody.
Night.